um, get into in more detail in a bit. We're still planning out a lot of things, so like things aren't finalized yet, but I think that what we're planning is super exciting. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to make a lot of really nice changes soon. So yeah, my intentions for the week are to walk through that strategy, and I have some calls with a few of you this week. And there are just some things also that I'm doing for landing pages and sending emails and just, yeah, like some standard stuff like that. Distractions, I feel like I have like a slight cold, so like I'm not 100%, but yeah, I'm excited for this call. So yeah, let me pass it on to Suga.
Thanks, Ahmad. Hi, everybody. All right. So yeah, I'm struggling with distracted by this Gitcoin thing still, but it's winding down, obviously. Okay, so for comms, yeah, I'm doing a bunch of just like jumping right in with some fundraising tasks. Very excited to hear what's going on. I feel like I've missed something, but I was there last week, but I feel like I've missed something about this strategy thing. So looking forward to hearing more about that. And also working on those emails for new projects, I guess, like reaching out to their user base, or donors, I should say, I think is what we've called it. Yeah, and yeah, so distracted by my end of day stuff and Gitcoin. And I'll pass it to Nicola.
Thanks, Suga. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about comms and even my involvement in comms. So I'm curious to hear the news and see the discussion and strategy going. How this is going to change in the future in the process of sub-DAOification. I would love to keep my involvement in a more or less same level, which is only like 5% of my work time. My focus for the week is finalizing actually a tweet thread and updating the homepage. And that's it. Yeah, I think so. And what else? Of course, support GitHub issues wherever I am tagged. And no distractions. I'm fully present here. But yeah, I don't feel like I also should be here every week. So I want to figure out what's the best flow. I'm gonna pass it to. I was like, who didn't go? Oh yeah, it's the new meeting. Okay, Ashley, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nicola. I'm feeling pretty good, having a good morning. My top comms priority this week and intentions are basically just to kind of help in any way that I can from a Communitas standpoint, because there's a lot of overlap between communications and Communitas, and with sub-DAOification coming up, communication seems like it's going to be a chapter rather than a working group, so I want to explore how best Communitas can support in that process, provide any insight, and yeah, maybe even help with some of the strategy stuff. So that's really my intentions to explore this idea in this call. And I really think just maybe even like promoting or helping with Twitter Spaces is really the only other thing. I don't have much on my comms plate this week. And my distractions are just the streaming and stuff in the background. And that's it. And I will pass it over to Kotave.
Hey everyone, I'm feeling good. My top comms priority for the week, I am more focusing on the fundraising working group lately. I'm also curious about like this with the sub-DAOification, like how, I mean, everything that Ashley and Nicola already said, and our involvement on the calls. So I think that will be interesting to talk about. That's it from me. I'll pass it to Lauren.
Thanks, Kadai. I'm feeling good. My top comms priority for the week is like working on this like restructuring of comms things, plus like AI April campaign and just like whatever reviewing things and coordinating the Cello launch and stuff like that. So yeah, those things. But yeah, I think the restructuring of comms is like a long overdue and useful topic. I'm really interested in kind of how we can use KPIs to actually like inform our work and like cut scope, like eliminate doing things that aren't that useful and focus in on doing things that are useful. My goal also is to stop doing comms. I'm planning on hopefully just not coming to these calls and not doing any more comms eventually soon. That's like where I'm trying to move towards. So I've been talking a lot with with Ahmad and Amin and Corey and Ashley about like kind of what these things are looking like going forward, as well as talking to Steve and stuff on the Twitter. But yeah, so I just wanted to like tell you all that because I think it's like we need to have a conversation all together as the comms team to figure out like what are the best next steps. And also I just wanted to like another priority I have for the week is welcoming Carlos, who is a new comms contributor. And he's not in the call right now, but he is coming on to help us with the Twitter and help us with some of this like growth and strategy stuff. And it's going to be working part-time, and Amin will be his buddy. And I know that he's been like kind of around, and you guys all probably mostly already know, but he's going to be a comms contributor. We're going to work with him. So I wanted to tell everybody that as well. And I'm also just trying to make sure that he feels welcomed, even though he's not on the call. I'll pass it to Monique.
Hey everyone, I'm good and I feel productive today. My intention for this call is just to listen and help answer some questions related to the dev and development, and here to sync with you. And I have to leave in 20 minutes, sorry. And I pass it to Santi.
Thank you, Monique. Jim, everyone, feeling good today. Just here to sync up and listen, especially about the strategy. And no special focus on comms for me this week. And I'll pass it to Suga.
You already went.
You were the last one, yeah. I think you were the last one. So, yeah, thanks, everyone. It seems like a lot of you want to talk about strategy and the sub-DAOification, so we'll definitely leave time for that. All right. So I guess to start, though, just to make sure we have nothing on the Gitcoin front. So today is the last day. So yeah, everyone here, of course, if you didn't donate, try to today, even though I know that gas is a bit high. I was actually looking at some of the stats from Dune, and we got like a decent amount of donations. I think we got like more than 500. Yeah, and like over $5,000. So yeah, it's a good amount, but of course we could always do more. So yeah, let's try to do one last push. So yeah, on that front, are there any things that we're doing in the last day that we should talk about in this meeting? Twitter Spaces maybe, or any like last minute initiatives?
I mean, there's like eight hours left.
I mean, 8 hours is a long time. That's like a working day, right?
Good point. Good point. I see so much. Oh, actually, this is a tangential but very important point, is that I hate to say this, but we really should make a push ASAP for Giveth against the really sad situation that's come out of this Giveth round in terms of the gas and the mainnet. Yeah, we should really create a calm strategy around that, but that's separate. So anyway, back to Gitcoin.
You want to say something, Lauren?
No, sorry, I was just switching to my computer.
Oh, good, no worries. Yeah, I guess if there's nothing that we need to talk about, I guess we're already working on everything. But yeah, just as a last reminder, if anyone can think of any one they can contact, or just, yeah, if you haven't donated yourself, please do so.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I donated today and I'll donate again, hopefully before it ends. And obviously I'll be posting those and tagging and all of that. But yeah, I don't know that we should put more time into it because honestly, at this point, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I just feel so pessimistic because I've spent a large part of today being very sad about it. And I'm reading, and I know we've all been reading or sort of like doom scrolling about the Gitcoin gas. So I don't know. I'm the worst person to ask.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, for sure. I mean, hopefully soon we'll have our own version, quadratic funding. So that'll be awesome. But yeah.
But even again, yeah, just the, I do think it's a great marketing opportunity to push Giveth, just to push the fact that you can donate off Ethernet mainnet, and it's like next to no gas fees, and that's, I don't know, it just seems like a real prime moment to push that. Like anytime, maybe that's a suggestion right now. It's like anytime, well, maybe starting tomorrow, but anytime people, or even now, are posting all of their laments about how, like, this money's being lost, it should go right to the projects, and then you can respond and say, put it to Giveth, make a project on Giveth, like, you'll get all the money. I know it's not quadratic, but it's still an opportunity to kind of plug Giveth.
No, for sure. I mean, I guess like maybe we should wait until the round is over, just because, I mean, we do want to work with Gitcoin. Yeah, and we are like, yeah, they are like our friends. So like, yeah, like maybe after it's over. Yeah, but I think that's a good point. Is like as like a selling point. I mean, it's definitely something that we do very well. Is we're on layer 2, so that's really good. All right. Cool. Yeah. So I guess next up, this is like one of the major things, and I think Lauren already spoke to it a bit. Is we just wanted to update a bit on updates on the team. So as Lauren said, she'll like soon she's going to step out of her role in comms. So like that means a couple of things. Number one is just in general, we need to restructure a few things. Not because she's leaving, but just because like we wanted to do that anyway. But now is like a good chance for us to restructure things and maybe figure out like what strategy would make sense overall. And like the second thing is we need to figure out if there's any things that Lauren was doing that, maybe someone else on the team needs to start doing more of. So maybe on like the side of editing posts, for example, or like, like when we post an article, just to, give it like a proofread or like things like that. We need to like, like basically not tag Lauren in those things anymore. So I guess, Lauren, is there anything else that you would like to say about this? Just, I guess, on like a high level, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to stop doing comms right now. It's like, I think this re-strategization and then kind of like figuring out what's important to us and then like me slowly delegating things is like the right path. Like you can still use me and we have our current flows. Like I'm still doing Twitter and doing all these things. But I basically like, I've been trying to get out of comms for like over a year so that I can focus more on project management, but still it absorbs like more than half of my time between all the reviews and everything. So kind of just the direction that we want to move in, but like I'm not going to abandon anybody or so like and like the opportunity is to start the conversation around like how we can restructure things and not just like a bomb drop.
Yeah, for sure. every time you think you're out, they pull you back in. Hopefully that won't happen this time. Awesome. Yeah, so that's happening soon. So also, yeah, a few more updates on the team. I just recently heard that Claire is also leaving soon, so she'll no longer be with Giveth. I'm not sure what the story is exactly, but yeah, I was just told that soon she'll be moving on. So that's also something as well, is just to yeah, like some of the things that she was working on, we need to reprioritize some of that and yeah, like figure out what those gaps would be. And then on the positive side, Carlos is joining us soon, as Lauren mentioned. So he already started working with us part-time. He's not on the call now, but yeah, he's going to help us a lot with social media and some things on the partnership side and also on like the growth marketing side. So yeah, we're excited to see his input. All right. So yeah, so I left a lot of room for us to talk about the strategy, since I think that's something that most of us wanted to talk about, and it's a really important thing that's happening. And I think almost everyone at the beginning of the call said that it was important. So I think it's nice that we're spending some time on it at the beginning of the call. So basically, there's a couple of things. Number one is we want to figure out how we can, instead of just doing like business as usual, like we were in the past, is figure out how we can start to do more marketing where we bring on a new user base. So that means new donors, projects, and users. And like this sub-DAOification process that we're doing is a great time for us to rethink this. So I'm not sure how many of you went through the forum post here, but in like the sub-DAOification strategy, one of the things that was mentioned is some working group, or like some of the working groups will stay as working groups and other ones will turn into chapters. So I think that marketing and comms fits more into that section of being a chapter, since it's more like a shared function. And if we do it that way, then we can do things like allocate resources better, and we can measure things in a more structured way, which we weren't doing before. So I think that's a great chance for us to start focusing more on like the chapter side of things and to figure out what's important to us, what should we measure, and basically, yeah, like think of us as like a shared service within the organization. And then what that means is we can start to be more diligent when it comes to knowing what we should focus on. So that means like every time we run a marketing campaign, for example, we would be able to see what resources were allocated for it and what was the ROI of that campaign. So let's say, for example, we have like a product launch, for example. We could have like a playbook for that and then figure out, okay, we need resources for this product launch as a shared service. So then we would say, like, what do we need to do? We need to maybe have like a tweet thread, maybe write a article for it, and like do all of these things. Then we would measure, was it successful or not? And then like also like a part of this is looking back at things that we did in the past and figuring out what was successful or not. And as Lauren said a bit earlier, we need to figure out what are things that we need to stop doing, what are things that we need to keep doing, but maybe turn them into more of a process or like scale them down in some way. And then what are new things that we want to do? But if we want to do something new because we want to keep in mind that we don't want to expand our scope too much, is they should only be things that we think would get us more users, more donors, and more people on the platform, basically. So yeah, that's sort of like where we were thinking on a high level. I have a few meetings with, like a lot of people here on the call later in the week, including Lauren, Ashley, Corey, and like a few others. So we're going to finalize these things and basically figure out how we can fit this strategy into the sub and DAOification that we're talking about. And then once we know what that strategy is and we have more of a plan, then we'll basically like tell all of you about it, and then all of you can figure out, do you still want to be a part of this? And if so, how many hours would you want to dedicate to it, and what things would you want to work on in this new structure? So there's also some notes that we started here. So if you want to take a look and leave some comments on this, we made this Google Doc that we're working on. So this is still like a living document. It's not finalized, but it's basically us thinking about what this could look like. And I think now is a good time if anyone on the call would like to talk about this, or maybe if you have any ideas or thoughts, now would be a good time. And yeah, I mean, of course, if you want to have more time and you want to go through this doc later and then let me know, that's also fine as well. But I mean, it's basically thinking about how we can restructure what we're doing with marketing and comms to have more of a focus on expanding our user base. And in the sub DAOification model is to how to like turn this into more of a shared service, like I said. So we would work with the working groups and then figure out, what's important and what's not, and then based on that, plan our strategy. I think I was talking for a long time. So does anyone have anything to add, or does anyone have anything to add, or like a question maybe?
Sure. I'll add that I think as a whole, with the growth chapter strategy and the way that it plays into sub-DAOification, is that I think it's important that as a whole we figure out what our growth and marketing strategy is. And then after we've got our strategy, we've been doing this for full force for at least a year or a little over a year now, without really like taking a look at what have we been doing, what are the numbers behind it, what's working, what's not working. Start like not doing the things that aren't working anymore and do more of the things that are working. So I think like just focusing on this strategy, focusing on gathering the data, figuring out what it is that has been working, what isn't, should really be number one. And then after that, we can figure out how that kind of like plays into the sub-DAOification and which working groups are responsible for which tasks to carry out these goals in the future. But I really think like just figuring out the strategy part is like step number one, and the sub-DAOification thing will all just kind of like fall together. So I don't think it's like too, because when I first looked at this document, I was like, okay, well, what is Communitas's responsibility in this, and what's going to be fundraising and partnerships responsibility, and what's going to be, the other parts, like, where does social media fall and who's going to be responsible for that. But I don't think that stuff is necessarily as important when we're really looking at the bigger picture of things. Like, we've really been going at this for a while, and like just kind of like trying to get a lot of contributors on board, and how do we like spread the word of Giveth. And so now I think it's just like looking at this as an organization as a whole before we start dividing it into different chapters and working groups.
Hey, just a note on that. Ash, I think that actually I think that the conversations with Communitas and development and fundraising team are very key on this strategy that Matt is bringing up to the table. Because for me, I think that one of the main problems that I've noticed that make our work slower is that we haven't had really a glue that tied everything together, meaning that sometimes we talk some things in Comunitas that then are turned into communication stuff, but there's not really a head that makes sure that everything makes sense. So I think that part of this strategy should make sure for all of us as an organization to be aligned in the priorities and in the action steps that make sense and are going to be more effective towards the goal that whatever we want to pursue. So I think that yeah, like in maybe adding to this document, Matt, would be good to just make sure that we set up a process in which we align every week, every once in a while, to make sure that it makes sense and we're not just like working atomically in all different directions.
Yeah, I think we're kind of trying to say the same thing. Is I think we should look at this as a whole organization first before trying to like separate it into different categories.
I think for me, there are two things that are coming into my mind. I would imagine that there's a short-term goals and long-term goals that wants to be like defined and part of the strategy. I'd also love to see like 100% clarity on what exactly is everything that goes into communications. I was wondering, I don't know, maybe like writing a list of all these things and like then selecting which things we don't want to do and which things make more sense. And so, yeah, that would be those are things that's coming to my mind. I think it would be a good place to start with just like putting this list together and seeing, I'm visual, right? So like looking at the whole picture and all the tasks and where they go and how they are interacting with other working groups and what's the responsibility that communications group wants to take on overall, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, some of that is already here. So yeah, like maybe start with this doc and see if you would restructure this or if anything is not clear here, or like leave a comment, maybe, just have a look at it.
I think something else that might be a good place to start with this is like to say, okay, like we have Twitter, we have LinkedIn, we have Facebook, and then we have like Spaces and Meet the Makers, and like maybe look at the like a few different examples of things that we're doing and have people who are responsible either for like leading or managing them or other volunteers to like do that retrospective on them and then be like, this one was really good and these are the reasons I think why. And we could do kind of like, we could do subsets, like here are like some successful social media things, or here are some successful community building things. And then we can kind of like, like maybe we want to keep doing Twitter Spaces, but we find that like the ones about this are good and the ones about this are not good, for example. Or like maybe we don't need to tweet so many times a day, but actually let's tweet less and only about these things or something. I feel like, I love the structure and a lot. There's like a lot of really great ideas in here, but it feels also a bit overwhelming. And I'm trying to look for like good places that we can start.
Yeah. One thing also that I think would be helpful is for us to figure out like what does success look like, or like what does it mean when an event or like a tweet was successful? Is it just how many people saw it, how many people attended? And like I think that's a good place to start, but I think it would be even more useful if we want to get more vigilant to figure out what to focus on. It is if we look at like, did this event bring us more users, or did it bring us more people on the platform that actually signed up? So like that's why here, like I wrote, like there's a section here, things that we need to track. So these things are like ones that I thought were important, but yeah, like I know that we already talked about this a lot and like GPS and all the other stuff, but I was trying to figure out like what are like the really most important things that we really care about. And in the end, it's, you know, we care about people using our platform. So either new users, new donors, new projects, how much they donated, and then like what is the conversion rate of each of the stages, which we're not really looking at. So I mean, that's more like a marketing thing, which is one level into these. And like maybe this is like not even one that we have here. Like maybe it's something that we just do on our own, but these are like the most important ones, like these top 4. But I think that's something that we should figure out, since yeah, like all of the efforts that we're doing should lead to one of these happening, right? I mean, it's not just about like having an event like for the sake of it. Like for example, maybe one thing that we could add here is maybe re-engaging with existing users on the platform, since like so far this is mainly focused on new users and new projects. So maybe like another one might be we get users to re-engage on the platform, or we get them to follow through with the process of maybe verifying their project, for example, or like things like that. So I think that there's more things maybe that we could think about on like what would success look like. Yeah, and I think that's like a big topic, and I know that we talked about this a lot, but I think that we should try and simplify it if we can.
And also maybe who is responsible for what is like clearly defined, you know, roles. Like I want to know, maybe, I don't know, because now the team structure is kind of changing. There are new people. I want to know like who I can like actually come to, because I don't see myself as a comms person. Like I see myself as someone who comes and helps and contributes, but I wouldn't think that it's my like a strength, or I understand this, you know, this environment well. So like who can I come and talk to about these things? I guess this call, but I mean, maybe just like dividing responsibilities and have a clear roles. Like for example, always I can go to Suga with this type of a thing, and when I need support for Meet the Makers communications, I always know that I go to Almond, you know. And yeah, so just like maybe more
I think Nicola, that also produces like that goes back to what Danny was saying yesterday, in terms of leadership. Like if we each could have a better sense of our own purpose, then we could be more self-initiating. I oftentimes feel like I'm just I'm doing things that Lauren tells me to do, you know. And she has a very we all know she has a very particular role in Giveth. So of course, for her, it's like there's tons to be done, and a lot of us are just kind of like waiting to be instructed, which is not good. It's not how it should be, right? We're losing so much energy that way, and wasting hers or exploiting it, however you see it. So yeah, the same idea, Nicola. Like if we could, and in that way we would all grow. We would have that confidence, might be a silly word for that, but we would have that initiative to be able to grow and develop individually, collectively. Yeah. Say again?
Yeah.
Say again? What'd you say?
I mean, like basically, like the autonomy to like, work on things on ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah. And then know our relationships to each other and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be, though, maybe after we define things a little more. So, yeah, like I think that would come a bit later. But I think, yeah, I mean, that is something that we should maybe do is have roles where we know like this person is in charge of emails, for example, or this person is in charge of articles, and yeah, like have things that way where it's yeah, like each of us could work without having to rely on like a single person that needs to approve things, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. Also, I'm thinking about what you were talking about with like figuring out which of these initiatives that we've been working on, how many users they brought on, or how many donations they brought on. Like, how do we even go about finding that information? You know? Like, I run the AMA. I do a lot of things that have to do with new users and onboarding new projects and stuff, but it's like I don't know where they came from or how they found out about it. Maybe I should have been asking this whole time, but I didn't. So like how do I go back now and measure, you know, how do I know what exactly it was that brought these people on? We did do a couple surveys, so maybe there's some information in there, but it's like, how do we
Yeah.
know how many donations they brought on the platform? How do we know which new projects were brought on by what Twitter space? Or like, how do we go about defining this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think each one would be different, but yeah, like I think, for example, like for like the AMA, you could only track what you know about. So you would basically see how many people attended that event, and then did any of those people, is it their first time attending, and did they do something afterwards? Did they sign up, or did they like yeah, like basically do something afterwards? I mean, like another way of doing this is we could start to have more like yeah, like look more at analytics, of course, and you know, be more like detailed on that, where we like maybe share links with people, and they're like links where we know like if they came through this link, then they're from this campaign. So we could do more of that kind of thing, but I think like retroactively we'll need to figure out what we can control, right, and what we know about. And if we don't know about it, then yeah, we can't measure it. But like for example, maybe we could look at like all of like the Meet the Maker events and see like from all of these events, did anybody mention in the survey that they first found out about us from that? Maybe. Or like just like on your own, like are there any examples of like an event where someone signed up right away, or like maybe made their yeah, like their own yeah, like yeah, like started using our platform. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have like the answers for this, but I think it's something that we should figure out based on like the kind of thing that we're looking at. Yeah.
But yeah, tying that into some of the other stuff we're talking about, it needs to also be like a going forward thing too.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want to waste loads of energy like we've been doing on trying to like parse out something that the energy that we put into it and you know equals money that we're putting into something that's not going to provide us with the equivalent, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. And I think like, I mean, if we plan it going forward, like let's say that we have a new event, then if we want to know exactly what the impact of that event was, then we should maybe have a place for like first of all have a special link for that event, so we know if someone came from that link, then they, you know, then we know their source. So like that's like a easy thing, I mean, that we could do. We could also have like a special sign up just for that event, so we know like if they signed up through that link, then we know that they came from that event. We could also have like a Google sheet somewhere where we just keep track of how many people, you know, were in each of the spaces that we ran. Then we could look at that and then go back and like look at all of them in one place. I mean, so there's all these things that we could do going forward, but yeah, I think for previous ones, we'll need to think about what's possible. All right. Any other thoughts?
I have one. I think
Yeah.
that there are some things related to comms that are just like, I don't know, retweet these, or I don't know, like things that are call to actions that are very simple and specific, and maybe they don't require us to be here, but they do require us to get to know about this and support it. And maybe we have some channels to do this, like the community call, and I mean definitely the Discord and the DAO. Maybe use also more of those channels for having kind of like this support this tweet, push this tweet. We want to amplify the voice of this, or clap on this blog post. And I don't know, just thinking about budget wise and everything, and the way that we think about our hours, we can dedicate maybe, I don't know, 1 hour to comms a week or every 2 weeks to just look into like these things where we need to amplify, give it a message, and just do those things. And we don't need to come to the call if we don't have to be here, if we don't have the assigned hours, and so on and so forth. So it's just a thought.
Yeah, I think that Kotabe is mentioning something that I've been thinking about, that at the end there's a lot of people here in the comms call, but we're not really doing anything efficient for comms. Like something that I feel also that I'm kind of like overwhelmed with the new comms strategy is that there's very important things, as you mentioned, to mention the conversion on different things that we're doing, but at the same time I'm like, but who's actually going to do that? Because right now it feels like kind of like it's only Lauren and Suga and myself executing the things. So it's kind of like, I think that it would be good if we clarify who is actually executing comms, and then with that in mind, try to be as strategic as possible for us to tackle as many things as we can. Because right now I feel that's not really clear who's actually part of the comms team and who's actually working on comms, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. I mean, I don't think anyone should attend a meeting if they think it's a waste of time, or if they're not, if it's not valuable for them. And I mean, all of you here are valued, of course, but if like comms is not your focus and like you're not benefiting from these meetings, then like we should figure out a better system, I think. Or like maybe have this meeting in a different format, maybe. That's a good point.
Yeah. What are some, like, Ahmad, since you have experience with this marketing strategy growth stuff, like can we make some practical next steps, some like bite-sized things that people could actually take ownership of, that are like clearly scoped? Because there's a lot of things that are scoped, but they're not like really just like, and now it's ready for someone to do it. You know, it's like incorporate a funnel. It's like, okay, we need someone who's like taking responsibility of doing a thing. And like, I think we need to, pick which ones we're going to do and then start doing them. Or maybe what we need is just a dedicated call where we talk about this for an hour and then come up with that or something.
Yeah. I mean, like I think we're still kind of in brainstorming mode, so it's not finalized. So I don't know if we should jump into this right away. I mean, I think some of this we do want to do, like no matter what. So like some of this we could start right away. But like, for example, I think like one of the practical things would be to figure out like basically this section here that I mentioned in the notes, which is what do we want to focus on? So like what are things that we want to stop doing and that we want to keep doing? So for that, I mean, I guess we need to maybe start with what are the categories of things that we're doing, or what are the types of things that we're doing. So maybe one of them is posting on social media like posting on social media is one. Maybe like another one would be Twitter Spaces is like another one. like another one could be events that we have in our own Discord, for example. So like those are like the kinds of things that we were doing over like the last year, and then figure out which of those do we want to keep doing, which ones do we want to scale back on, which ones are like a good use of our time. So like maybe that's like a starting point, is maybe make a doc of all the stuff that we did over the last year, at least on a high level, and say these are like the 10 things that we regularly did. And then we could figure out of these 10 things, do we want to keep like 5 of them, like, or do we need to get more data on some of them to see if they worked? So like that might be a good starting point, is to have a doc like that.
And also, sorry to interrupt, just to add, and also what new things could we be doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like other kinds of outreach, like in my case, trying to reach a more, or maybe I don't want to say, no, hang on, a more, just a different audience from what we are already encountering in this niche Web3 solar punk corner. You know, like, that's all.
No, for sure. I mean, I think like for some of the new stuff, there's a bunch of stuff here. So if it's a new thing, then it probably makes sense to add it onto this doc. If there's like a new thing that you think, I think I got most of the main categories here, but if you think that there's any missing, or if you want to add to any of them, feel free.
Which part?
On
Where
this,
are you?
like, yeah. So
the marketing and growth chapter? Yeah. Okay, I'm here.
So the section called strategy.
Yeah.
Overview.
Right next.
So all of these bullet points are basically new things that we want to do, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So out of these, if you want to add to any of these, feel free.
Cool.
Yeah, so I guess like, so I guess like first thing that I think is like next step is to have a doc of all the things that we did, and have some way of looking at, do we want to keep doing those things, and seeing what data could we pull from those things. Maybe it's data from the surveys that we did, or just from our own anecdotal data of, like, I think this was a good event because I feel like it was good for us and we got a lot of people using our platform, right? I mean, it could be as simple as that, and then we can figure out how we could make it better in the future. So like that's the first thing I would do. And then the second thing is figure out what are the top level goals that we want to track. So that's basically this section here. So now I have these 5, but are there any others that we want to optimize for? So like that's like another one to think about is that, like, are these 5 do they like sort of cover all of the main things that we would want to have in the new strategy, or is there something that's missing from these 5?
I will add also, and you have it somewhere in the document, but the churn rate, meaning people that drop out of Giveth, I think that also would be, in a way, maybe this is going to be harder, but try to keep churn rate in mind, or maybe I'm phrasing this wrong, a way that we track how many people just drop off or not continue on Giveth, or not follow up on their projects, or just stop being engaged, No,
like that's a good point. I mean, if you look at like this dashboard that we frequently use, I really like this dashboard, but it doesn't tell you how many of these people are returning versus new. So like, for example, it tells us that there's 468 unique donors here, but it's not clear how many of these are new donors versus people that are just donating multiple times. So like that's something that I think that we need to have in our data, is how many new donors versus returning donors, and then we could figure out what our actual like the actual numbers are in terms of how many people are, like you said, dropping off maybe. So I think that's like a main thing that I put here is like we're sort of missing new versus returning data. And then also we're not keeping track of campaigns that we're doing. So like I said, if we have like a launch, for example, we don't really know, was this a successful launch or not? So like, for example, if we have like a new partnership, for example, or we launch a new product like the referral thing. So like, we don't really know was it successful or not based on just like the data. So that's something that we need to look at. So like that's like the second thing that I think that we need to track. And then there's all of the ongoing stuff like how many visitors are we getting on our platform? How many emails do we have on our list? How many followers are we getting? Like all of those like lower level metrics are also ones that we could look at as well. So I mean, not to get too distracted about this, but yeah, I think like maybe we could start with these, and then if we think that there's others, we could add them here. But I think, like if we look at new versus returning, I think that would let us track basically all of the things that I think that we want to. So that's the second thing is what are the top level metrics that we want to track. And then like the third thing that I think we need to do is just finalize this as an overall strategy and make sure that we're all on the same page. And I think that we're already doing that because we have meetings set up for this already. So I think that's already in progress. So like I don't think that we need to do much about that. I mean, it's like happening already. But yeah. So like finalize this as a strategy and then move to this sub-DAOification thing.
Yeah. I
a chapter. Yeah.
I agree. I also would just want to kind of express some things because I feel like I have some attachment to some of these things. So I'd like to hear that like some of this stuff might get put on the chopping block, like these events that we've been working so hard to produce and create, and like my heart is in some of these, is like we've put a lot of work into it, and I feel like some of them have gotten to the point now where it's like they're finally at a point where they might be doing okay. So it's like so much work has been put into like getting them to the status of where they are now. And even with the AMA is something that if it comes down to budget, like I will still just do it on my own free time because I feel like passionate about it. So I don't know. I just want to bring that up, that I feel like some of this stuff is like coming to a place where maybe it's getting to its like height or prime in the moment. Like we started out doing almost nothing, and now we do have so many things going on. And I'll also say that strategy and marketing are definitely not my strong suits at all. So like maybe there is a better strategy to come at it, but I don't want to just like cut out all of the stuff that we've been putting so much heart and soul into creating either. So like keeping that in mind as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're not like a heartless company where we're just going to say, yeah, like this is like a waste of our time. I mean, it's more just about figuring out like what are things that we could maybe focus on instead. So like, for example, like for the events, I'm sure that we definitely want to do events in some way, but it's just a question of like, what are those events? Who do we invite? What is the format? What is the topic? So like, I think a lot of the stuff wouldn't be that we just stop doing events fully, but it would be like, maybe we rethink how we do events, maybe,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and like that's what like this next stage is. I mean, it's still in a brainstorming stage, so we can figure out like what's important to us and what do we think is valuable, even on a personal level. Yeah, so is that a good starting point, Lauren? Like these three things, like number one is to have a doc of things that we did over this last year. Like that's one that we can make and then just start adding stuff to and figuring out like how can we figure out if it was a success or not. And then the second one are top level metrics we want to track, make sure that we're fine with those. And then, making sure that we can actually look at those. And then the third thing is just to finalize this as a strategy, basically.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And maybe after the call, like if Corey's watching this, she can create an issue, or if you wanted to create an issue, start the doc and then assign the people in it so we can get started.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, cool. Okay, we're at the top of the hour. I think we may need to have another meeting about this next week, maybe after we finalize some of this stuff, and maybe even the next comms meeting will also be focused on this as well until we figure out what the new structure is. But for now, just feel free to leave your comments on this doc, and I'll also make this other one that I mentioned here of all the things that we did this last year so we can start to think about which ones do we want to keep and which ones do we want to stop doing. Oh, first SEO landing page? Yeah, I'll find that for you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you all around.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lamont.
All of us.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.